We are officially into, well, not officially, yeah, it's not on the calendar officially winter, but it feels like it. It finally feels like cold weather and winter weather here in the state of Michigan. A little bit of snow over the weekend as well. And so with winter weather, maybe we bundle up a little bit more when we send our kids off to school, probably put some extra warm clothes, maybe some extra pair of shoes for in the classroom, in their book bags, and that can mean more weight on their back, and that can mean some back pain as well as our usual pains and aches over the winter season. Joining us to talk about why those things happen and ways we can prevent those sort of back pains and treat them as well is chiropractor Dr. Richard Levine from the Levine Clinic of Chiropractic. Dr. Levine, thank you for being with us today.
How are you? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, good to have you on as well. Appreciate you coming on the show. So at this time of the year, when the seasons change from the warmer side of the year in the spring and the summer, especially into the cooler side of the year in the fall, and well, it just seems like we skipped fall altogether and went straight to winter. What are some of those common issues that we see, particularly for people's backs around this time of the year?
I always talk to patients about the winter isn't inherently problematic. What the winter is it's going to exacerbate what's already there. So the easy answer is take care of yourself in the summer, take care of yourself in the fall. You should have an easier winter. But hindsight's 2020. Now that we're here, what can we do to stay well? And my answer is always going to be overall health. Drink a lot of water, get some sunlight, eat the right foods. We talk about the cold season, we talk about the flu season. As far as I'm concerned, we don't catch a cold. The cold catches you. We go from Halloween, our sugar candy, or our sugar holiday, to Thanksgiving, our pie holiday, to Christmas and New Year's Eve, our cookie and alcohol holiday, to then we go into Valentine's Day, the second candy holiday. So what I mean by that is sugar is the ultimate inflammation factor in the body, the ultimate inflammatory trigger. So what we want to do is this time of year, first and foremost, good health. Like I said, make sure we're eating fruits and vegetables, drinking our water, and avoiding that excess sugar. In terms of our spine, the problem we oftentimes face in the winter is that the air pressure drops, yet we treat our body the same. So we want to make sure we're stretching. We want to make sure we're keeping our bodies warm. We want to make sure we're dressing properly and we're outside in the elements.
And I've heard the phrase before, sitting is the new smoking. When we get into the winter season, people aren't getting outside as much. They tend to be lounging more often in the home. And so they're sitting for an extended period of time. Dr. Levine, how does that play a factor into some of those aches and pains as well?
Well, we want to make sure of with sitting is that periodically just get up. Even if you're only walking in place, getting up, moving the joints is going to be very beneficial. That's number one. Number two, what we want to make sure of is that we're getting some sunlight. And I know it seems like I brought up the sun a couple of times. Sitting itself isn't the problem. It's that we're sedentary. All summer long, we sit at work during the day, we sit at school, but then in the evenings and the afternoons, we go to a park, we go for a walk, we ride on a boat, we go for a bicycle ride. Where now suddenly we sit all day at work, sun sets at 4:00, and we go home and we sit at home. So the key isn't altering our work schedule as much, isn't altering our school, our work sitting, but making sure we're being more active when we're outside of the office, when we're outside of school. If you look at the Scandinavian countries, they're in the sun, they're in the elements all winter long. They get outside, they take their kids outside. So, like I mentioned, don't so much pay attention on altering your sitting during the day. But one of the best things you can do is when you're not at work, when you're not in school, get outside, get that body moving.
We're joined by Dr. Richard Levine on today's edition of the Megacast with Levine Clinic of Chiropractic, over 55 years of service to the community in the local area. Dr. Levine, another thing we see so often this season is, of course, it gets snowy outside and people will be shoveling their driveways, shoveling their walkways, shoveling their way in and out of their work building if they're in the office during a blizzard. And often the technique isn't quite there, and that leads to a lot of back problems this time of the year. What suggestions do you have for individuals as they're taking care of this routine winter activity, winter chore, to make sure they're not putting themselves in position to injure themselves, particularly their back?
Now, my first answer, the first answer is going to be my first answer across the board, which is getting your spine looked at, getting your spine adjusted. There's no way to know the health of your teeth without going to the dentist. Now our spine is the same way. If our spine was on our mouth, was on our face, I think we'd take a lot better care of it. We wouldn't see the spinal decay, the spinal degeneration that we see in so much of the population. But nonetheless, Levine Clinic, we're celebrating 60 years in practice here in Farmington Hills. And one of our biggest goals is, what can we train patients to do for out of the office? So before shoveling, stretching. I know it sounds, like something we haven't thought about since we were in gym class in grade school, but stretching, whether it be on a physio ball, whether it be right on your mattress or on the floor, stretching is real important, number one. Number two, what I want everyone to make sure they're doing is, if you go to any hardware, Home Depot, Lowe's, you'll see they now make a curved shovel. The shovel is curved, and that's a little bit more ergonomic, so that way there's putting less torque, less strain on your spine. When we're shoveling, making sure we're keeping our hands spread apart. By keeping it spread apart, it allows us to put less torque in the body. Making sure that instead of shoveling and then twisting, we're actually rotating our whole body to move the snow. And then, take a little bit longer. Don't try to do it quickly. When you try to do it quickly, you're putting more shovel or we're putting more snow on the blade each time, which makes it heavier, harder to move. So, again, first and foremost, get your spine looked at. Without seeing a doctor of chiropractic, there's no way to know what the health of your spine is. That's number one. Number two, stretch and be smart. Don't try to overdo it. Make sure you're also wearing warm clothes. I see my neighbors going out there in shorts and sandals. Their bodies are cold. You look at a baseball pitcher between innings, it could be 80 degrees. They're always putting a jacket on, making sure they're keeping their throw and shoulder warm. Make sure we're keeping our joints warm when we're out there shoveling the snow. Boots, gloves, hats, all that stuff.
We're joined by Dr. Richard Levine from the Levine Clinic of Chiropractic on today's edition of the Megacast. Find more information, levineclinic.com, levineclinic.com. You can also call them to request an appointment and get more information, 248-855-2666. That's 248-855-2666 for more information, and follow them on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and review them on Yelp as well. All that information, again, on the website, levineclinic.com. Dr. Levine, we think about the kids this time of the year. I always remember in elementary school during the colder months of the year, my backpack felt just a little bit more heavy than it usually did before, between packing snow pants, maybe an extra pair of shoes for in the building versus boots for outside, all my books and homework and all that too. And that can have an impact on kids' backs and on their overall health and posture too. What suggestions do you have for parents in helping prevent some of these issues in their children? I would imagine some of them very similar to what we do for adults, but also what they should be looking for in case their kid might be having some issues with their back this season.
Well, if financially feasible, I've talked to a lot of patients about it the last couple of weeks. If financially feasible, keep an extra set of boots, some winter gear at school. That way they're not having to carry it with them, hold it at the bus stop, or carry it on the bus, the walk to school, whatever it may be. So if you can keep an extra set of snow boots, that type of stuff at school, that would take some weight off the spine. The other thing I would suggest is try to get a backpack with compartments and keep the heavier stuff closer to your back, because what that's going to do is by having it closer to the back and wearing the shoulder straps, always wearing 2 shoulder straps at a time tightly, making sure you're really tightening them. What that's going to do is keep that weight close to your spine and not pulling you back from the backpack. Another thing I always make sure of talking to parents and talking to kids about in the office is stretching. Make stretching fun. It's something you can do as a whole family. Mom and dad can do it with their kids. And then last but not least, making sure kids are never running. Very common, kids that's late for the bus stop, whatever it may be. Make sure they're not running, because even when it might not look icy, as we all know, it can be. And one more thing, I know I already said it was the last, but one more thing is making sure kids are taking big, normal steps. Oftentimes in the winter, we take these baby steps and we're not putting all of the weight down on our body. We want to make sure that we're taking normal steps, putting our weight into our heel, and that's going to keep us balanced on the ground, give us a better surface so we're not sliding.
We're joined by Dr. Richard Levine on today's edition of the Megacast with Levine Clinic of Chiropractic. Again, more information can be found on levineclinic.com. Dr. Levine, a few more minutes with you today before we'll need to say goodbye. Anything else we should be keeping in mind at this time or this season to keep up with our back health, our spinal health, and more?
Yeah, I was just going to say, one other quick answer to keeping kids healthy in the winter is our office. We see a lot of kids. To adjust a child, it's not nearly the same process we use to adjust an adult. To adjust a baby, we use no more force than you would use when you're picking a tomato at the grocery store. Very, very, very gentle force. Sometimes we even use an instrument to adjust them. So that's number one. Number two, for the winter, what I would highly suggest is the things that we do in the summer, do them in the winter. Obviously, they have to be altered. But in terms of our food, all summer long, we eat picnic foods, coleslaws, potato salads, watermelon. Now, in the winter, we have a tendency to cook a lot, cook the nutrients off of fruits and vegetables. So make sure that we're eating a good amount of fruit, a good amount of vegetables. As we head into the winter time, like I mentioned earlier, sugar being such an inflammatory thing, making sure that we're finding alternative sweetener sources. Thanksgiving coming up. Instead of adding sugar to your cranberry sauce, add some honey, add some maple syrup. In terms of the spine, as we all summer long, the pressure is high and that allows for an open disc space. As we head into the winter time, that pressure drops and that disc space becomes thinner. And when we start to get that swelling, things push outwards. And when we get all those tissues pushing outwards, we're more likely to have pain. We're more likely to feel those discs and those nerves aggravated. So making sure you're seeing your doctor of chiropractic, making sure that you're stretching is also another benefit. In our office, we teach all of our patients a 2-minute stretching exercise. And that's to be used just like we brush our teeth, not simply for pain management, but for the preservation of spinal health, spinal hygiene. And one last thing I want to add in the wintertime is making sure that we're keeping our windows open. By keeping our windows open, we get some fresh air. We move that same dusty air as opposed to breathing in that same dry air all the time. And you can also get a humidifier in the house. A lot of people have humidifiers built into their furnace, but getting a freestanding humidifier, keep it next to your beds, next to your kids' beds, that's going to not only hydrate the body, help you avoid the dry, cracking skin, but it's also going to lubricate the lining of the nose, helping prevent cracking there and keeping your first line of defense healthy, not letting those pathogens in. And like I mentioned earlier, getting outside and getting some sunlight, that's going to stimulate vitamin D synthesis, the conversion of cholesterol to vitamin D, which is a major building block throughout our whole body, but especially in our immune and our respiratory systems. Levine Clinic is part of our celebrating our 60th anniversary. We've been offering what we call our Keep Smiling coupons. Anybody that sees this on the Megacast or heard about it, if you want to call our office and if you just mention the Keep Smiling coupon, that'll allow you a complimentary consultation with one of our doctors here, which can put you in the pathway of achieving better health, both spinal and physical.
We appreciate that. And I'm sure your customers also tuning in will appreciate that as well. 248-855-2666. Mention the Keep Smiling coupon that Dr. Levine just mentioned at 248-855-2666. Or get in contact with the Levine Clinic of Chiropractic also at levineclinic.com. Dr. Levine, thank you so much for joining us.
Tyler, thank you so much for having us. You, the entire West Bloomfield community, have a happy and healthy Thanksgiving. And again, for 60 years, it's been our pleasure to serve.